Really got to try on that left-hand side. What happened?
But I've gone up and over and bloody head over biscuit. It wasn't enough stability there for myself, but no, I was busting for a bit to make this game. It didn't seem to work out.
Hello, cheers, and welcome to the Scrum of the Earth, your podcast for news, reviews, great interviews, and so much more, all about the world of rugby. My name is David Lawrence. I'm an American rugby fan who follows the game wherever I can find it all over the globe. If you'd like to get in touch, I'm easy to find on all the usual socials, and, frankly, I just always love to hear from you. We are part of the Sports Social Network, and you can find us wherever you typically get your content, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other major platform. So there was some amazing rugby on offer this weekend, so why don't we just get this thing moving? Starting, as always, with current updates. Big shocker. I'm going right back to talking about my son's baseball team. But just real quick. So they're 6-1-1. I imagine that puts them atop the table, but thankfully they don't actually post the standings. So on Friday, though, I felt like a kid who had just gotten a snow day because our town's Department of Public Works ruled that no grass fields would be available for that evening because of the ridiculous amount of rain we've been getting. That meant his game for that evening was canceled. The reason this is good news is the game was scheduled to start at 7:45 p.m., meaning it would end at 9:45 p.m. By the way, my son's bedtime is 8:30. On top of that, it's just been a new ice age here, along with all the rain and everything. So now that I think about it, I guess my current update is actually I like complaining about stuff. So moving right on to our reviews, the big business this weekend had to be the European finals. The weekend kicked off with the Challenge Cup final, Bath nominally hosting Lyon in Cardiff. The big news before the kickoff was, of course, Holly Davidson being given the whistle. I believe it was the first time a woman, or as annoying men like to say, a female, had refereed a European final. It's about damn time, I'd say. She's, already possibly the best ref in the world, and it's high time they put her on bigger stages. I've said it before, but I think she's quietly enjoying being given the sort of crappy games that she does usually get in the URC. They always seem to be like, give Holly Zebre versus Dragons this weekend. And meanwhile, she's secretly like, hope I don't come back from Parma looking too tan. Enjoy your night in Galway, boys. Anyway, the game itself. Lyon, they scored first. Finn reluctantly took 3 when they came on offer to make it 3-5 at the 10-minute mark. But the Dungeon Master, Tom Dunn, he smashed through for the first Bath lead, 5-10 after the first quarter of play. Sam Underhill was having a rager, and Ajomo capitalized to make it 17-5. The comms were saying that Lyon looked tired and worn out, and this just 25 minutes in, not good. But soon after, quote, Lyon have woken up once more, unquote, said the comms. But as they broke out wide, Niniashvili got smashed in the head by Underhill. As they reviewed it, the comms reminded us that Holly Davidson had given Underhill a red card in the round of 16, though she called this one a yellow to the chagrin of a large chunk of the crowd and, frankly, the comms. So another yellow, this one to Will Muir, brought Bath down to 13 for a short bit, and the crowd were getting restless. More slowdowns and TMO checks, but it was 17-5 at the intermission. The second half, it's Lyon, they scored early, but it was all Bath. It was Bath night in Cardiff. And the comms kept talking about how measured and unflashy Finn Russell was, but sometimes you just want the win. Ben Spencer, he had a great game before eventually being subbed out, presumably so he could shop online for, I guess, new ribs. Question, do you suppose that Tom Dunn's ears start bleeding like first thing in the morning? Does he pour a bowl of cereal and then realize he needs tape and Vaseline? Just curious. In any event, Lyon, they really lost their grip on the reins as things wore on. There was an air of inevitability as Bath took home the trophy, a thorough performance from the Premiership leaders. It was 37-12 by the end, a fitting cap to an exciting tournament, no matter what people say. So on Saturday, however, it was the big one. It was the Champions Cup final with the winners of 2 upsets facing off. It was the Northampton Saints, who just knocked out Leinster. And yes, I'm going to find a way to mention that as often as possible, facing my Border Beagles, Ube Bay, who took out favorites Toulouse. And I honestly didn't know what to expect in this one. I mentioned that these games were held at the Principality, and Cardiff, of course, has a storied history with the European competitions. In the olden days, Cardiff Arms Park hosted the very first Heineken Cup final, which saw Toulouse defeat Cardiff RFC in a dramatic extra-time match. That venue hosted the final again the following year with Brive claiming victory over Leicester Tigers. Wow. Anyway, since they built the Millennium Stadium, now the Principality, they've hosted this very final in 2002, 2006, 2008, 2011, 2014, and now it was back, and the atmosphere was electric. The game itself, oh my word, the pace and ferocity the Saints came out with. It was shocking for Ubebe as much as for me, and it took them less than 2 minutes to smash through for their first try. My concern coming into this one was definitely the Bordeaux defense, and this did not bode well. Scary moment, though, soon after, as Agent Furbank took an accidental knee right to the face. He had to be stretchered off. The intensity and violence early in this game were reminiscent of State of Origin. It was like a cross between rugby and, I don't know, a gladiatorial combat. Damien Penaud, he got his 12th try of the tournament soon after, but the Jelly Bear couldn't tack on the extras. I'm very much wondering, and if any listeners were there in person, I would love to hear what you think. Like, what was the makeup of the crowd? Mostly Saints fans, mostly Ube fans, mostly neutrals? It was just really hard to tell from the broadcast. It kind of ebbed and flowed, and I would just love to know. Anyway, as I said, the game was incredible. The intensity level was so high, I feel like I needed a water break at the half-hour mark, with Ube just ahead, 10-15. It felt like it would come down to the small strokes. Every little moment magnified, every mistake potentially calamitous. But, by the way, just a tiny mini complaint here. This is one of the biggest games on the World Rugby calendar, right? There are few contests year in and year out that rival this one. Can we get a freaking timer for the yellow cards? You're producing a professional broadcast. You couldn't get a little countdown clock to show us how much time is left? Like, it's part of the game and it matters. And, it makes it more compelling to the fans as well. Come on, people. Let's do this thing right if we're going to do it at all, which it sounds like we might not. Anyway, if you listen to the comms, the officials basically got every single call wrong. Again, I would love to know what you all think. Do rugby comms go too far in their criticism of the officials? Like, it's the opposite in the NFL, which also seems weird. And so in the last few years, we've made a really big deal, rightly so, about fan abuse of refs and online abuse. Like, surely we don't want the comms throwing them under the bus with impunity, right? Anyway, if you were to make a word cloud for this match based on the comms, the huge words right smack dab in the middle would read chaos and carnage. And we were all locked at 20 at halftime, giving us all a collective breather. Early in the second half, a yellow card against the Saints saw them down to 13 players, though we wouldn't know for how long. See above complaints. And maybe with a half hour left, Ube had another try waved off. This match was getting even crazier. Quick side note, as an Ube fan, I was very grateful that forward passes weren't really registering entirely with the officials, right? Like, they noticed a couple, but they missed, like 100. As we entered the final quarter of play for Europe in 2025, my Border Beagles held a 2-score lead. They showed a key stat on the screen. Over the course of this competition, in the last 20 minutes of games, Northampton had scored a total of 9 tries, while Ube had scored a ridiculous 17. I was dying a million small deaths as Ube gave away chance after chance. There must have been at least 3 tries that looked firmly in the bank before they lost the ball forward or got unceremoniously turned over. It was so frustrating. And, it just made me worry about this team's ability to close out the big games. Between minutes 64 and 73, I would love to know how many times Bordeaux kicked to the corner only to get nothing out of it. It was starting to become kind of a joke as Northampton turned them over yet again. Were we that desperate to give this one away? Another side note, every time they showed the Saints coach's box, all I could think was, can you guys find some clothes somewhere? Like, it's not August. You're not on a beach. There's no chance they're going to ask you to come down like onto the field and play. Why are you all dressed like middle schoolers in gym class? It's really weird. Franco Smith, if he was watching, must have been tied in knots. Anyway, as I mentioned, it was an unbelievably, just an incredible match. A gorgeous way to finish off an epic European series. So many highlights, so much drama, and at the end of it all, it was my Border Beagles, Ube getting their first European trophy in franchise history, taking down the mighty Northampton Saints 20-28 in the Welsh capital. I will be counting the days until this competition again gets into gear. So good. Honestly, one of the best games I've ever seen, like easily in the top 10. To top it all off, though, Damien Penaud was crowned European Player of the Year, and after the game, they asked him how this result would impact his team's confidence in the domestic competition, and he said, "Tonight, we drink beer. Tomorrow, we think about the top 14. Love that guy. Okay, switching gears and swinging down to the other hemisphere, it was round 15 of Super Rugby Pacific. Crusaders versus Highlanders got things started early Friday morning for me. They ran through the murderer's row that was the Crusaders starting 15, and then when they showed the Highlanders, the best thing they could come up with was it's the unpredictable halfback, Falau Fakatava. It was a bit frightening. Still, we were guaranteed some bright spots simply because Timothy Tavatava-Nawai was starting, and Taniela Filimone, former Free Jack, was on the left wing. Tavatava-Nawai, by the way, came into this match, get this, leading Super Rugby in turnovers won and defenders beaten. Chew on that for a sec. Quote, "There's a chill in the air, but it's perfect conditions," unquote, said the comms. And it was Mitch Drummond's 150th game for the Crusaders. He was pretty emotional as he walked out ahead of the team. Just before the quarter hour mark, it was Sebu Reece getting his 66th all-time try in Super Rugby to break the record previously held by TJ Perenara. What a player, Sebu Reece. Oh, he's been so good this year. It was a reasonable 10-5 at halftime. Sounds like we've heard that before this week. And at the three-quarter mark, we actually led 10-12, which made me assume we'd lose by 1. I got it wrong, however, as Cam Miller had a penalty to get a draw right at the end, but he just scraped it left, and we would in fact lose by 3. 15-12 in Christchurch. As I say, in this exact spot every single week. Oy vey already. So, the Reds, they were home in Brisbane to face the Hurricanes, a battle of Wallaby versus All Black Nines. And to underline that fact, it was Roygaard and McDermott getting a couple of tries. The teams locked at 7 after only 5 minutes. It was as close as you could like until the Hurricanes kind of got bang tries just before halftime. The Reds looked rattled to me. It feels like we've seen this too often this season with them. It was 13-26 at the break. Second half, different story. And after a magnificent 20-phase drive, it was the home team retaking the lead 27-26 as we approached the final 20 minutes. Fun one for the stats nerds. This was the first game all year that the Reds kicked or even attempted a penalty goal. So a massive try in answer saw the visitors get a big win on the road, dashing the hopes of their host 27-31 in a breathtaking contest, quite frankly. The Chiefs, they were looking to keep pace with the marauding Crusaders, but they were home against the world's favorite team, Moana Pacifica. They opened the broadcast with a beautiful montage of Artie Savia, and no wonder. And his team were hunting for their 7th win of the season, a number equaling their total wins overall in their history. On top of that, they were looking to clean sweep the Kiwi sides, a notion I would have thought, frankly, impossible even a couple of months ago. There were close to 17,000 people packing out the FMG Stadium, the visitors looking to build on their historic run, and the host looking to get back into the number 1 spot on the table. The one move the Chiefs made, by the way, was to put Samasoni Takiaho back into the starting lineup, a move I heartily approved if they had asked. I mean, duh. So Chiefs, they went up early, took advantage of a Patrick Pellegrini yellow card to pile it on, building a 19-0 lead after only 20 minutes. Mackenzie's try right on the cusp of halftime to make it 31-0, and it somehow got worse for Moana in the second half. It turned into a statement win for the home team, absolutely smashing their guests. A penalty try as the clock went red slammed the lid on a game that Moana Pacifica would certainly rather forget. 85-7. Holy cow. So finally, out in Western Australia, the Force held their final fixture of the year, taking on the Waratahs. The Tars went full noise, with the exception of Andrew Kellaway, who was a late scratch. Not sure what happened there. They easily could miss him, I thought. Just before halftime, the Force took their first lead of the day, sparking what could have almost qualified as an actual fight. And it was 17-14 as they went to, as the comms put it, quote, simmer down in the sheds, unquote. In the second half, Taniela Tupou got yellow carded for tripping. Like, it was really bad, just an absolute brain fart moment. It seemed completely out of character for him. I know he hasn't been on form lately, but launching yourself to trip somebody, not going to get you into the Wallaby selection anytime soon. 35 minutes went by in the biblical reigns before any more points were scored, with the Tars tying it up late. That led to not Golden Point, not Super Point. Oh no, I'm sorry, it is Super Point. Man, oh man, they need help naming stuff down there. And by the way, I'm available. The visitors, they put a stink on the end of the Force's season, getting a splashy try in the corner to take the victory, keeping their hopes alive. 17-22 was your final score of the year in Perth. So moving on to the Pacific Four, it wrapped up this weekend. As we talked about last week, a lot was riding on points differential. Canada and New Zealand were both within a fingertip grasp of the title. The winner would also be the historic leader in this tournament. At Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane, Canada, frankly, opened up a can of whoop-ass on the Wallaroos. They put a huge stamp on their tournament, 7-45. Their 7 tries were all scored by different players, a testament to how well this team plays as a unit. And I mean, they're just so connected and empathic right now. Importantly for us, that meant Canada's bonus point win put them 5 table points and 24 differential points ahead. It felt like it was going to come down to the wire, and I had to be rooting for my Eagles to come up spoilers, if nothing else. So late Friday night, there we were, the New Zealand Black Ferns hosting my USA Eagles under the lights in North Harbour, a venue that has seen some of the best rugby in the world over the last few weeks, by the way, from Moana Pacifica's incredible win over the Blues to the epic battle last weekend between New Zealand and Canada. It's just got a vibe. Like there's some serious mana building at this place. As I talked about previously, my main hope was we'd put up some ferocious defense and deny our hosts a bonus point. It's literally hard for me to even say this right now. But failing that, giving away a bonus point while holding them to a 23-point differential would have felt like cold comfort. Yeah, as you all, I'm sure, know by now, my hopes were quickly dashed by a ferocious Black Fern squad. They did indeed come out looking to rack up an all-time scoreline, but my little theory about how that might lead them to make mistakes was completely absurd, as it turned out. Let me put it this way. Caitlin Vahakolo, she scored 4 tries against us, and her performance will be completely forgotten given the fact that Portia Woodman-Wycliffe scored 7. Imagine putting in 4 tries and being completely overshadowed. Like, we may as well have just watched from the sidelines. So our bright spots were, again, Hope Rogers, who nabbed another try, as did Frida Tafuna, with Mackenzie Hawkins converting both. We actually led for 11 minutes in this match, but we effectively flatlined for the second half. Personal notes, Stacey Waka got a try for the Kiwis as well. I'm just such a massive fanboy for her, so it just felt like good news in the middle of a massive disaster. The final scoreline was an eye-popping 79-14, more than enough to win the battle of the points differential. So for the third time, it was New Zealand, or as USA Rugby embarrassingly spelled it, New Zealand, taking the title of Pacific Four champions. They and Canada finished with 13 table points, but the Black Ferns plus 91 PD made the difference in the end. The Wallaroos got 1 win, that being against us, obviously, and earned 5 table points, while we finished squarely, flatly at the bottom, winless, and without even a losing bonus point to show for our efforts. A bitterly disappointing outing for my Eagles. But, on the other hand, how cool is this Canadian team? So, moving on to MLR, back here at home, the obvious game of the week was my Free Jacks taking on the team we decided to hate after the New York team folded. DC Old Gory, it was a big match. Wheelsy said as much himself when we chatted last week. By the way, I recommend checking it out if you missed it. He's just a really interesting guy. DC have been annoyingly scrappy this season, and we owed them from our disappointing loss away to them earlier this year. Great atmosphere as always. I got there early enough that I got a lovely surprise. By the way, Jason Patras, the man himself, he was in the stadium with his little baby, and I got to chat with him a bit. It looks like he might be back for the playoffs. I heard a rumor it might actually be next week, which would be incredible. He's such a down-to-earth guy, and when he's got a baby and is wearing his civvies, I'm almost surprised I recognized him. Potty, great to see you. I hope you are fit again very soon. The game itself, bit of a disappointment. My section believing we were very hard done by the officials, though I think, people just kind of enjoy shouting, "Sir! Sir!" a lot. We had a try waved off after we'd already kicked the conversion, which is always frustrating. A couple of misses, including a really easy one, saw us go down 20-17. We managed a losing bonus point and kept them from a try bonus point, but it still felt like one that got away. Side note, I think I've mentioned them before. The guys who sit on our right are both coaches at the college level, and they're sort of curmudgeonly and bitter, and they're also kind of just leaning into it a bit. And so we've started calling them Statler and Waldorf, by the way. This time, new fan favorite Brock Webster was not doing well. He was having an off day. And I was trying to remember where we acquired him from. And I asked the guys, "Hey, guys, where's Brock from?" And one of them immediately responded, "Somewhere he should go back to." High comedy. Great stuff. Elsewhere around the league, we had a big Western clash late in the evening on Friday, where I am, with the up and down Seawolves taking on league-leading Houston. It was a surprisingly low-scoring affair. Seattle taking out the Thundercats 14-9. Anthem were still looking for their first ever franchise win, and this week against the visiting Chicago Hounds, and they would need to wait at least another week as the Pupsters won 19-33. NOLA, they were home for the rugby team of Latter-day Saints, Utah Warriors. NOLA just aren't clicking right now, losing 28-31 in a close one. The final score sounds exciting, but trust me, it was not. So finally, the LA Bellends, they were hosting the other surprisingly good newer franchise, Miami Sharks. It was the home team nabbing another 26-20. These teams might be the coolest storylines this year. I mean, that'll be at least until my Free Jacks take down our 3rd consecutive championship. So after this weekend, my Free Jacks are still on top in the East, though the margin is no longer particularly comfortable. Chicago and DC are nipping at our heels, with Miami still clutching on to 4th place. Out west, Houston and Utah are now locked on 48 points, with LA now in 3rd. Who saw that coming? Seattle have now overtaken San Diego, who are now bottom of the conference after starting the season 6-0, a precipitous drop to be sure. Meanwhile, the other domestic competition in women's elite rugby, we again had 2 fixtures for the weekend, starting with a big one. My Boston Banshees going to Colorado to face league-leading Denver Onyx. It, it went pretty much as I expected, unfortunately. Denver are a real powerhouse right now. My Banshees got beaten fairly handily, 53-21. As I'm writing this, they haven't updated the website with any stats, so I only know the score sort of thanks to Instagram, though I did discover, thanks to a good friend of mine, Rugby Julia, that their YouTube channel is now up and running. You can watch the games. I think you can replay them, but the only audio is on-field audio. There's no comms, but you know what? Worth it. It does feel like this is the matchup that we are headed for the Legacy Cup, which is closer than you might think. It's going to be played in just over a month. It'll be Sunday, June 29th, a nice 2 p.m. kickoff time. It's going to be at TCO Stadium in Eagan, Minnesota, which, by the way, is the high performance center for the Minnesota Vikings. If you're considering going, I have put a link to the ticketing in the show notes. After that, the Bay Breakers, they were back home for the stupid New York team that nobody likes. And thanks to my good friend Rugby Julia, I knew where to find this one live on Friday evening and got to actually watch it live. It was great. It was 14-21 in favor of the awful team, and that, the team that all right-thinking people despise. As most of you will know, the WER's deal with DAZN, the streaming platform I now hate even more than Blow Rugby, dissolved in ignominious disgrace, with fans, teams, and the organization itself all coming out on the losing end. It's been impossible to discern where it all went wrong, but it seems obvious it has to do with money. We're now down to a markedly reduced quality broadcast, though, as I said, I'm just grateful that it's out there. It's still absolutely worth watching. It's really compelling. Get on board. So we were locked at 20 entering the final quarter of play. Thankfully, the team not from New York edged out to a lead as the clock grew tighter. By the end, I was greatly pleased to see the Garbage Town team lose 26-38. What a lovely sight it was. Well, my friends, by that music, you'll know it's time for this week's Diamond in the Ruck. And this week, I'm giving it to Maxime Lucu. Monsieur Lucu, your performance in the European final was otherworldly. Without your calm head and quietly perfect play, there was no way it would have happened. You weathered the storm of an indescribably aggressive Saints attack, never once looking nervous or concerned. You were the field general, leading by example. Maxime Lucu, congratulations to you, for you are this week's Diamond in the Ruck. Well done, sir. So that, of course, brings us to our updates and previews. I can't believe the European comps are over. Like, it takes so long. It's so spread out. Most of the coverage you get is just complaining about the format. And then, bam, we have a finals weekend of unbelievably good rugby. And then, poof, it's gone again. Lesai. So anyway, the Premiership has its final regular season round with stupid Exeter home for sale. Gloucester will be looking to snag one of the obviously hungover and exhausted, snag one off, I should say, of the obviously hungover and exhausted Northampton Saints team they're going to be facing. Leicester, they'll be looking to deprive the Newcastle Falcons of a final win for the year. Bristol, they're home to face my Harlequins. And finally, Saracens will be facing another exhausted team, Bath, and it kind of lines up nicely for them. Like, they need Bath to lose to keep their hopes alive, and Bath could really rest pretty much everybody. So anyway, back here at home, we've got the Free Jacks and less attention-worthy action here in the MLR. The WER is getting close to the end of a fantastic inaugural season. Super Rugby is wrapping up as well. I'm already feeling that mini dread of all these competitions kind of going away at roughly the same time. I'm trying to remember what the heck I was covering last summer. Like, it's a total blank. Anyway, that reminds me, there is bit of an elephant in the room, that being the British and Irish Lions. They'll be touring to Australia. You might not have heard of this. It kicks off sooner than I am comfortable with, frankly. However, we're going to conform. We're going to do the expected. We're going to have a very special Lions preview episode with some of my favorite guests, frankly. Hugh Griffin and the Craig Manson should absolutely be a hoot. Can't wait. Well, my friends, that does it for another week. And as I said, I'm getting pre-bummed about the absence of rugby that is nigh upon us. This week, however, couldn't have been better, unless you're American, and hopefully things will be looking up in that department soon as well. So, to all of you across the globe, cheers, talk to you soon, and be well.
It gives me great pleasure to be here today.
Oh, it does, Nate. You want to tempt the wrath of the whatever from high atop the thing?